Hi YouTube and welcome to my channel. My name is Patrick. So in the world of cybersecurity, end-user training has become a staple of corporate security strategies. Organizations believe that with enough training, employees will learn to avoid phishing attacks, social engineering traps, and other common pitfalls. However, despite billions being poured into these training programs, breaches caused by human error remain alarmingly high. So, why is user security training so ineffective? Well, let's break this down step by step into key frustrations. Alright, so issue number one, the checkbox mentality. So many organizations treat security training as a compliance checkbox rather than a meaningful security practice. The focus is more on meeting regulatory requirements than actually reducing risk. So the problem is that organizations roll out generic training modules once or twice a year, and then often there's no follow-up. Employees rush through the modules just to complete them without retaining or applying the lessons. So this approach is more about covering liability than it is about protecting the organization. Companies can say that they did their part, but in reality, the content isn't impactful or relevant to day-to-day work. Problem number two, irrelevant and outdated content. So the training programs are often very cookie cutter, with not a lot tailored to the specific risks that the organization or its employees face. Many end user training modules feel like they were created years ago and haven't evolved with modern threats. So the problem is that employees are taught to avoid things like Nigerian print scams or ridiculously obvious phishing emails, but modern attacks are much more sophisticated, such as spear phishing, business email compromise, or deepfake voice attacks. That's something we have to worry about now. So, why are we still warning people about low-level threats when the cyber threat landscape is continuously evolving? Training should address current threats, not old tactics that are no longer a serious issue. It needs to be dynamic and continually updated. Alright, so problem number three, one-size-fits-all training. Another major issue is that the one-size-fits-all approach, the issue is that the same training is rolled out to the entire organization, from the IT professionals to the marketing staff, without considering their different roles, access levels, or exposure to threats. So the problem is a receptionist, a developer, and an executive all have different levels of technical understanding and different types of exposure to threats. These require role-specific training. For example, if an executive with access to sensitive data should be trained against spear phishing, while a developer might need to focus more on secure coding practices. So, why is it that companies assume that everybody faces the same level of risk? This leads to disengaged employees who don't take the training seriously because it doesn't feel relevant to their specific job. Alright, so problem number four, training is seen as a boring chore. Security training is often treated as an inconvenient necessity by both employees and management. These programs are typically dull, non-interactive, and designed more like a college lecture than a practical guide on staying safe. So the problem is, people are busy, and when training is a mind-numbing PowerPoint or a generic e-learning module, they don't retain the information. In fact, many employees might zone out or multitask while the module plays in the background. So, how is anyone supposed to learn from training that that's as exciting as watching paint dry? There's no engagement, there's no real world simulations, there's no opportunity to practice skills. It's no wonder that employees don't take it seriously. Alright, so issue number five. Training doesn't teach how to react in real situations. So, while While many training programs teach employees how to recognize phishing emails or tell them not to click suspicious links, they often don't teach them how to react in a real world situation or provide them with any tools to respond appropriately. So, if an employee spots a phishing email, what should they do next? Many organizations fail to offer clear protocols and procedures or emphasize the importance of reporting incidents properly. So, here's the rant about this. Teaching people how to recognize a threat is only half the battle. Employees need to be trained on how to respond, who to contact, and how to report incidents, and the steps that are taken after they've spotted the malicious email or other suspicious activity. Without this, even well-trained employees can make simple mistakes. Right, so item number 6, lack of metrics and follow-up. Training effectiveness is rarely measured, and employees are often not held accountable for whether they apply the lessons they've learned. Once the training is done, it's back to business as usual. So the problem here is that companies rarely track whether employees actually change their behavior after the training. There's no continuous improvement loop, there's no phishing tests, and no reinforcement of security habits. So how can a company be satisfied with training programs that don't measure whether the employees have actually become security aware? So without follow-up tests or simulated phishing campaigns, there's no way to know if the training has had any impact. Alright, so how can we fix this broken system? Well, we need to make the training continuous and adaptive. Training shouldn't be a once-a-year event. It should be continuous with regular refreshers and updates as the threat landscape changes. You need to integrate something like micro-learning into the workflow, short, frequent security reminders rather than a long annual session. Customize the training based on the employee's role, their risk profile, and their access level. Make it specific to their day-to-day work. For example, train executives on high-profile phishing attacks, while developers receive secure coding training. And then you should simulate real threats. But I'm going to take this a little bit further than you think. So you should use real-world scenarios like phishing simulations and live fire exercises to keep training engaging and to reinforce behavior. You need to let your employees experience real attacks in a safe environment to learn how to respond. But I want to take that a little bit further. Something that gets people really engaged is when you show them the real-life tools that the attackers use. Because here's the thing, right? If you set up some tools that the attackers actually use, and then give the people hands-on experience with these tools, it's going to teach them better how to stay secure. Because the thing is, I could sit here and tell you 3 things to look out for in phishing emails, but first of all, that's going to go in one ear and out the other. Second of all, it's going to change, right? This is a constantly evolving threat landscape. So let's say instead of doing that, you set up a phishing page, a real phishing page as an example, and then let the employee see on one hand, this is what the victim sees, and on the other side, this is what the attacker sees. And then give them a chance to play with it. Let them click around and do stuff on the attacker's control panel. Give them a real life experience with these tools. Because I can guarantee you, it's going to be way more engaging. People are going to feel very satisfied with that because they got to play with the tools the attackers use, and because they did, now they're better equipped to identify these types of threats. And also, something that happens too frequently with cybersecurity training is that basically it feels like you're talking down to the person. Like the person who's being trained feels like you're treating them like an idiot. And if it doesn't matter if you are or are not, what matters is that's how they feel about it. And when you're being treated like an idiot, when you're being talked down to, well, you're not going to be engaged. You're not going to remember the lessons that you've learned. So again, instead of just saying, look out for X, Y, and Z, set up real tools that attackers use, and let the end users play with those tools. Again, that's going to do a much better job of preparing them for these real life threats than a simple PowerPoint will. And that brings me to my final point. Make it engaging. Instead of boring presentations, use something that gives them hands-on experience, and maybe even gamify it. But having interactive elements, real-life tools that they can interact with, you got to make it relevant, fun, and interactive so that employees actually remember the stuff they've learned. So, yes, I have some frustrations when it comes to end user security training, but the industry could finally make this end user training an effective tool for reducing human error in cybersecurity rather than meaningless checkboxes. Anyway, thank you for watching. My name was Patrick. If you enjoy this type of video, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. I won't hold it against you. And if you want to see more videos like this, then leave me a like. That lets me know that you want to see more content in a similar vein. I don't take sponsors and I don't monetize this channel. I'm making this content just to educate you and give you advice. So, again, if you want to see more of that, leave me a subscribe. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.